Korean War is often called forgotten, mostly due to the comparisons to the later conflict in Vietnam. However, this bloody war and its results were crucial for the Cold War, and in many ways continues to shape our present day, as the chances of reconciliation on the peninsula look dimmer every passing day. Welcome to our series on the Korean War. If you are interested in the history of this era, don't forget to check out our second channel, The Cold War. The link is in the top right corner. Shout out to the sponsor of this video, War Thunder. This free-to-play online military vehicle combat game is available on PC, PS4 and Xbox, and in crossplay between the platforms with no purchase necessary. Just download and play. Great graphics, music, sound effects and realistic physics and damage models fully immerses more than 20 million players worldwide into the massive battles. 3 different modes allows everyone to select the level of realism suitable for them. The developers are very active and constantly provide free major updates to the game and add new features, vehicles and maps. So what are you waiting for? Play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Support our channel and get a premium aircraft, tank or ship and a 3-day account upgrade as a bonus by clicking the link in the description. Following the Japanese surrender and defeat in the Second World War, Korea, formerly occupied by Japan, was divided by the USSR and USA along the 38th parallel. The Soviet Union took control of northern Korea, while America occupied the south, with the capital Seoul. Korea was first administered by the US-Soviet Union Joint Commission, which aimed to grant independence to Korea in 5 years. Following riots against this decision, the US declared martial law. Soon the work of the Joint Commission was considered ineffective. Paired with worsening relations between America and the Soviet Union, the situation brought about a deepening of Korea's division. The US proposed elections in Korea under the UN's auspices, which was rejected by the Soviets and the Korean Communists, who did not believe that the voting would be fair. As a result, South and North Korea held separate elections, with pro-US forces solidifying their power in the south, while pro-Soviet communists did the same in the north. In 1948, North Korea became a state under the name of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, while the South declared independence and became the Republic of Korea. Both Soviet and American troops had left Korea before the start of the Civil War, but they had an instrumental role in preparation for the war. The leader of North Korea, Kim Il-sung, and South Korea's Seungman Rhee wanted to take the rest of Korea and were encouraging their respective Soviet and American allies to support them. The Soviets wanted to avoid a direct confrontation with the US and believed that the Americans would not interfere, given their non-intervention in the Civil War in China. Said civil war in China was over, and China's desperate need for Soviet aid, paired with Soviet pressure on China to provide military support to North Korea, led to the Chinese decision to assist Kim Il-sung militarily. Even prior to the start of full-scale military operations in 1950, occasional skirmishes on the border and guerrilla warfare were employed by communists in the south. As a result of this, up to 8,000 security force personnel were killed in South Korea, and the process of establishing the South Korean army was hindered. The North was better prepared for the war. By mid-1950, North Korean forces, called the Korean People's Army, KPA for short, numbered between 150 and 200,000 troops, including thousands of Chinese Civil War veterans from Korea. They were organized into 10 infantry divisions, 1 tank division and 1 air force division, with 210 fighter planes and 280 tanks ready for deployment, along with 14 fighters, 78 bombers, 105 T-34-85 tanks, and some 30,000 soldiers stationed in reserve in North Korea. In comparison, the Army of the Republic of Korea, ROK for short, had 98,000 soldiers, 65,000 combat, 33,000 support, no tanks, and a 22-piece air force. This drastic difference and the unpreparedness of the ROK army predetermined early success for North Korea. On the morning of the 25th of June 1950, the North Korean army passed the 38th parallel, and this is considered the start date of the Korean Civil War. It is unclear who fired the first shot, but the North Korean army started an orderly advance throughout the 38th parallel, being supported by tanks and heavy artillery. The South Koreans did not have tanks or anti-tank weaponry, and instead of gathering all available troops at strategic points, they were scattered across the front. They did not stand a chance against the North Korean army. The principal offensive, conducted by the KPA 1st Corps with 53,000 men, drove across the Imjin River towards Seoul. The 2nd Corps, with 54,000 soldiers, attacked along two widely separated axes. One through the cities of Chuncheon and Inje to Hongcheon, and the other down the East Coast Road towards Gangneung. On June 27th to 28th, Seoul fell, and the majority of the South Korean army was essentially defeated. All the South Korean leadership under Lee Seung-man could do was to order a massacre of communists in the south, which continued throughout the summer of 1950 and took up to 200,000 lives. The remaining South Korean forces formed a defensive line south of the Han River. The only hope for South Korea was a US intervention. At first, the US was reluctant to get involved directly in Korea, since the possibility of direct confrontation with the USSR and China could have potentially led to full-scale global war. Along with that, at the time Korea was not viewed as being as strategic as Japan or Germany. Therefore, there were only 200 to 300 American troops stationed in Korea. The US had decided against interfering in the civil war in China. But the triumph of the communists in China, along with the swift advance of Kim Il-sung in Korea, caused significant concern for the Americans. Firstly, they knew that a united Division and 105th Armoured Division of the North Korean Army. Korean ground units were supported by 36 tanks in this battle against none on the American side. Task Force Smith were able to hold their ground for 3 hours but had to withdraw under heavy North Korean attack, while suffering 60 dead and 82 captured. During the battle, the 24th Infantry Division's 34th Infantry Regiment was able to set up in Pyeongtaek, 15 miles or 24 kilometers to the south. It would be similarly defeated in the Battle of Pyeongtaek. Over the next month, the 24th Infantry Division would fight in numerous engagements to delay North Korean forces with similar results. Within a week, the 24th Infantry Division had been pushed back to Daejeon, where it was again defeated in the Battle of Daejeon. The North Koreans, overwhelming US forces time and again, were able to push the 8th Army all the way back to Pusan. By August 1950, the North Koreans controlled the majority of Korea. while the United Nations Command, with South Korean and American troops, plus a small British contingent, controlled a small portion of the southeast, including the port of Pusan, which was strategically vital for the United Nations Command, as it allowed for the landing of American troops, tanks, and weaponry. The Battle of Pusan Perimeter started on August 4, 1950, and went on until mid-September. Although North Korean troops had advanced quite rapidly through South Korea, resistance by the United Nations forces had weakened them. The North Koreans lost 58,000 of their troops and a large number of tanks, which forced them to rely on less experienced replacements and conscripts. At the beginning of the battle, the KPA had 70,000 men and 40 tanks. During the course of the battle, the North Koreans brought a total of 13 infantry divisions and 1 armoured division to the fight at Pusan Perimeter. The total number of UN troops in Korea on August 4th was 92,000, of which 47,000 were in US ground combat units and 45,000 in South Korean combat units. Thus, the UN ground combat force outnumbered the North Koreans 92,000 to 70,000. The UN troops were commanded by a celebrated Second World War general, Douglas MacArthur. In September, more troops and over 500 Sherman and Pershing tanks were transferred to assist the UN troops. The Americans also secured total naval and air domination against the North Koreans, who were much weaker in that respect. This was causing military and logistical difficulties for the KPA. The UN command organized a defense throughout the Pusan perimeter. Natural barriers such as the Nakdong River helped in this regard, while full air domination allowed Americans and South Koreans to move inside the perimeter freely. US forces demolished all bridges over the Nakdong River in the retreat, which caused the deaths of the refugees fleeing to Pusan. North Korean forces had 4 possible routes into the perimeter. To the south, the pass through the city of Masan around the confluence of the Nam and Nakdong rivers. Another southerly route through the Nakdong Bulge and into the railroad lines at Miryang, through the route into Taegu in the north, and through Gyeongju in the eastern corridor. The aim of the UN command was to repel the North Korean offensive and start a counter-offensive. The North Korean 4th and 6th Divisions were up against the American 24th and 25th Divisions in Yeongsang, Masan, and Miryang. The North Korean 2nd and 3rd Divisions were up against the US 1st Cavalry Division and the 1st and 6th South Korean Divisions around Taegu. In the northern part of the Pusan perimeter, the 13th, 8th, 12th and 5th North Korean Divisions were up against the 6th, 8th, 3rd and Cap Divisions from South Korea. The Battle of Pusan Perimeter consisted of a series of battles, which started with the US 8th Army counter-offensive from Masan to Jinju, with an aim to push the North Koreans out towards the Kum River and break up the North Korean forces near Taegu. The battle started on August 7th, when Task Force Keen was confronted by the KPA 6th Division, which was also going on an offensive. The Americans failed to achieve their aims of taking Jinju and breaking up North Korean forces near Taegu, but inflicted significant casualties. This can be considered the first successful large-scale engagement by the American forces. On the night of August 5th to 6th, the KPA 4th Division started its advance towards Yeongsan and caught the 24th American Division by surprise, which expected an attack from the north around Taegu. The North Koreans were able to continue pressing forward and take Cloverleaf Hill and Oblongni Ridge, critical terrain astride the main road in the Bulge area. By August 11th, the attack on Yeongsan started. The attack was repelled by the 1st Marine Provisional Brigade in conjunction with Task Force Hill, which nearly annihilated the 4th KPA Division. Another KPA attack started in the north of the perimeter. The 8th, 12th and 5th Divisions attacked with an aim to secure the Taegu-Poang line. Initially, this offensive was successful. Yeongdeok was captured, while ROKA's 3rd Division was encircled and the area around Poang-dong was taken. The ROKA 17th, 25th and 26th Regiments, as well as the ROKA 1st Anti-Guerrilla Battalion, Marine Battalion and a battery from the US 18th Field Artillery Regiment, were organized into Task Force Poang Dong, and the 8th Infantry Regiment and 2nd Infantry Division were organized into Task Force Bradley to counter the KPA 5th Division and 766th Infantry Regiment. Along with that, ROKA's 3rd Division was evacuated from their encirclement by the US Navy and brought to Yongil Bay to join the defense. The UN forces successfully repelled the fierce KPA attack and forced them to withdraw on August 19th. Another KPA offensive was planned towards the UN command headquarters in Daegu, with 5 of its divisions participating. The city was defended by the US 1st Cavalry Division and the ROK 1st and 6th Divisions of the ROK 2nd Corps. Again, despite initial advances, the KPA failed to achieve its aim after suffering significant casualties, largely due to carpet bombing conducted by the US Air Force in the largest Air Force operation since the Battle of Normandy. Towards the end of August 1950, the initial KPA offensive on the Pusan perimeter was repelled by the UN forces, which was accompanied by large losses for the KPA and increasing difficulties in supply due to the complete air superiority of the US. For example, by September 1st, the North Koreans had less than 100 tanks in comparison with 600 American tanks. Nevertheless, the KPA was still a formidable force which received reinforcements to launch a new offensive. Kim Il-sung ordered for the war to be over by September. This time, the KPA command decided to make a frontal attack instead of trying to outmaneuver the UN forces. This attack, known as the Great Naktung Offensive, started on September 1st and pushed both sides to their limits. Again, the North Koreans were able to break through in a number of positions, but by September 6th, the UN forces were able to stabilize the perimeter. The final blow on this offensive was the American landing at Incheon, which took the North Koreans completely by surprise and allowed the UN forces to end the threat to the Pusan perimeter. War Thunder has an unrivaled arsenal of more than 1,200 historically accurate tanks, planes, helicopters and ships from the 1930s to the 1990s, playable across 80 major battlefields of World War II and the Cold War. Support our channel and get a premium aircraft, tank or ship, and a 3-day account upgrade as a bonus by clicking the link in the description. We're planning to talk more about the Korean War both on the Kings and Generals channel and our second channel, The Cold War, the link to which you can find in the description or in the top right corner, so make sure you are subscribed to both. We would like to express our gratitude to our Patreon supporters and channel members who make the creation of our videos possible. Now you can also support us by buying our merchandise via the link in the description.